Hello and welcome to January. So we've made it to yet another new year. So what are you thinking for this new year? What's on tap for you? I try to not talk about resolutions because I'm not sure resolutions are the way to go. Many of you have probably experienced we start a new year off all gung ho with these resolutions or goals that we have for ourselves, and it usually isn't too long before they fall off. So I try to look at it a little bit differently, and I think you're going to see this year in particular on the blog and through some of the workshops and things that we're going to be offering at Ignite, that we're really going to try to focus more on taking care of ourselves. You can call that self-care if you want. You can call it whatever you want. The bottom line is the older I get, the more and more I truly believe that until we take proper care of ourselves, we are not going to be able to do all the things we want to do, whether that's the goals and resolutions that you're setting, whether that's being there in the way that you want to be for your family, your friends, you're at work, whatever it is. If we don't take care of ourselves and love ourselves, that's the other piece that's really important, I think, in terms of relationships, again, whether they are romantic relationships, familiar relationships, friendships, work relationships. Until we love ourselves and have ourselves in a good state of being, it's harder to be able to build those good relationships, those strong relationships, those healthy relationships, and also then to achieve all the things we want to achieve. So one of the things that I wanted to do, sort of getting back to the point of this little mini yoga flow, is to show you some poses that I like to personally do when I just need to feel refreshed, whether I'm kind of feeling in a funk, whether I'm just feeling sluggish, whether I'm tired. There's a lot of reasons I might do this particular mini series that I'm going to share with you today. But I also want to say this, these are the poses that work for me. They're the things that when I'm feeling kind of blah, kind of in need of a charge, a recharge, if you will, a refresher, these are the things that speak to my body. So as you're following along with this, if any of them don't really resonate with you, that's perfectly fine. You can certainly insert things, use this as sort of an example, if you will, of what you might want to do to be able to offer yourself a mini flow refresher, if you will. Some people just like to take a little mini shavasana just to be able to bring some stillness and quiet to the mind, and that's perfectly fine. I'm going to show you a series of short flow of poses that are all movement and stretching based, because that's what works for me. I do have a meditation practice, so that is separate from the movement piece. But again, whatever it is that fills your bucket when you just have a couple of minutes. This could be something that you do at the beginning of your morning when you're first getting up and getting started in your day. It could be something that you do at the end of the day, maybe right before you go to bed, just to kind of help wind down a little bit. And it certainly can be something that you do anytime that you just need that little bit of a pick-me-up, a little bit of a boost, if you will. So with that, again, I'm just going to walk you through what I do, and you can certainly make changes as you might choose to. So I always start in easy seated pose, just kind of relaxing. I find it helpful to get grounded before I do any movement, before I do any meditation or anything of that sort. So I just like to kind of sit grounded, close my eyes for a few moments, just breathe, just kind of feel my body. Feel where maybe I feel the tension, the tightness, stress, if there's any pain or aches or anything like that. I just want to take a moment to kind of almost scan the body and mentally think about my body from the crown of my head all the way down to the tips of my toes, bottoms of my feet, just to sort of see, like, how am I feeling today? Where am I feeling? And especially if I'm doing this mini series, this mini flow, then I'm feeling out of sorts in some way. So where is that in my body? Because that's where I really want to focus my breath. I want to focus my intention, and I really want to try to incorporate some poses that are going to help with that. For me personally, a lot of times when I'm doing this flow, I'm doing it because I'm feeling tight and tense in my shoulders. I feel tight and tense in my low back. Sometimes I'm starting to get a little bit of a headache because of all that tightness and tension up in my neck and shoulders. So a lot of the stuff that I do helps me to kind of loosen those things up. So again, you can make adjustments based on what it is you're finding in your body. So let's just take a moment to settle in, So a comfortable seat, let the sits bones sink into the ground, shoulders relax. We're going to loosen up all the muscles in the face, relax the jaw. And if it's comfortable, softly close the eyes, let the eyes and temples relax. Let the hands and fingers relax. Toes and feet relax. Feel your sits bones just kind of sinking into the ground as you get settled. And I always like to sort of mentally envision my stress and tension and anything else that I'm holding on to that I'm trying to get rid of. I like to try to visually, in my mind, see that kind of melting off of my body into the ground beneath me and kind of going away from me. So if you're a visual person, you can mentally imagine something to that effect as well. And then just start to do that scan that I talked about, just kind of starting at the crown of the head and scan down through your forehead, your eyes, cheeks, ears, jaw, throat. We're going down through the shoulders. We'll take a quick side detour, if you will, to the arms. And as we're doing all of this, we're just noticing what's here. How are we feeling in those areas? We'll come back up to the shoulders and then go down the torso, both the front and the back. It's important to do both. Sometimes we get sidetracked and we only think about one or the other, but let's do both the front and back of the torso, the low back, the hips, buttocks. We move down through both legs, all the way down to the ankles, into the feet and toes. And you can take as long as you need to with this. It's really just a matter of tuning into the body and seeing what's here. And just making a mental note of the areas that maybe you're feeling a little tight and tense. I can tell you for me right now in this moment, my low back, particularly on the right side, is feeling a little extra tightness and tension today. So it's just something I'll keep in my mind and keep in my intention as I move through this brief flow. So normally after I get grounded, the next thing I do is just take a few moments just to kind of do some stretches for the neck and shoulders. Again, as I mentioned, most of my stuff is in that neck and shoulder area a lot of times. So I spend time just doing some stretches. If you're not feeling anything in that area, you could skip this part and just move into something else. But I usually like to sit up nice and tall, lengthening through the crown of my head. And then I drop my chin down toward the chest. And just let my head be heavy. Let the weight of my head provide the stretch. And I'm mindful that my shoulders are staying down and away from my ears, so that I get the maximum benefit of that stretch. And I'm going to feel that stretch down my neck, across the top of my shoulders, and possibly even into the upper back area, depending on how tight I'm feeling. And I might sit like this for a couple of minutes, depending on how I'm feeling. Eventually, I'll add some movement with the breath where I'll inhale and take my left ear over to my left shoulder. And again, I'm always trying to sit up nice and tall when I'm doing this. I don't want to be slouched over. I want to be sit up nice and tall. It's just the head that's tilted over toward that left shoulder. So I'm opening up the right side of my neck and I'm keeping the shoulders again down and away from the ears. And I may stay here for a couple of breaths too, depends on how tight this side is. Sometimes I'll even add a little bit of movement into the head where I'll take my chin and sort of rotate it down toward my shoulder, changes my gaze from out here in front of me over here to the left side of my body. Just adds a little twist. So it just depends on how it feels. And then I'll roll my head back down, kind of reset. And then I'll take it over to the right. So right ear to right shoulder. Again, sitting up nice and tall. The head is tilted over to the right, opening up the left side now. And I'm always checking in with my shoulders, making sure they're not trying to become earrings. Again, we can do that turn of the head and certainly stay in these as long as we might like to. And eventually then I'll roll my head back down. Another thing that I'll do sometimes if I feel like I need more movement and less static stretching is I'll flow with my breath. So I'll inhale, take the left ear to the left shoulder, exhale, chin down to the chest, inhale, right ear to right shoulder, exhale, chin to chest. And as I'm doing that from side to side, following my breath, I'm also making sure that my shoulders are staying down. I think that's one of the harder things when you're doing the movement with the breath, is sometimes we're focusing so much on the breathing that we don't realize our posture has changed. And so again, I do that a few times, and then I usually end with lifting my head up toward the sky, stretching out my throat a little bit, and then bring my head back to its normal natural position. I might do some shoulder rolls, just again to kind of loosen things up both directions a little bit. And then I usually do a few cat cows to kind of wake up the spine again, because a lot of my stuff is down my muscles of my shoulders, my upper back, and into my low back. So I find those to be very, very helpful if I do a couple of cat cows. I may also do a few side stretches where I place my right hand to the ground and take the left arm up and over. So I'm really reaching from that waist all the way up through to the fingers on that left hand, just separating the rib cage on that left side. And then of course I would do the same thing on the other side. That side stretch sometimes feels really, really nice. And when my low back is bothering me, the other thing that I always do is inhale my arms up and I fold forward. I just hinge forward, let my arms support me. I come forward as far as is comfortable. Depending on how long I want to stay here, I may also take a block to rest my head on. But I usually am not staying that terribly long. I'm just providing a little bit of a stretch here in that low back down into the hips and buttocks a little bit. So those are the kind of the stretches that I do at the very beginning to kind of get myself set up. And then from there, again, most of the time, what my body wants to do is kind of get that back and shoulder area stretched out. So I oftentimes will go into a supine twist. That's what I'm going to demonstrate next. I'm going to come off of my cushion and come down onto the floor. And you can certainly use props for this. If you have issues with your hips, you can put a block between your knees. But I'm just going to come down on the floor and bring those knees into the chest and drop them over to the right. And shift a little bit here. There we go. Let me just stay on my mat. Let my shoulders relax into the ground. Stretch my arms out in a T formation. Now I'm obviously turning my head to the right to look at the screen right now. However, in this pose, since my knees are to the right, what I should be doing is having my eyes either looking up to the ceiling or looking over to the left, so that my neck can relax as well. And I will stay here for a couple of minutes, and then I will bring my knees up, untwist my torso, and then we'll take it to the opposite side. So we'll do the same thing now going the other way. Again, shoulders stay anchored. Eyes are going to switch either to look at the ceiling or to look to the right now. And again, you can stay here as long as you want. I find this really relaxing, especially for the low back when I feel a lot of tightness and tension there. I kind of looks like wringing the body out. And again, I'll bring the knees back up and straighten out the spine, bring those knees in. I usually do a little rocking from side to side just to kind of massage that area after I do that. And then we'll rock ourselves back up. The other pose that I often do, and again, this is meant to be a short thing, is child's pose. I like a good extended child's pose. So knees are wide, toes are touching behind us. We're sitting back toward our heels, and you can always have something underneath the heels that you are resting on, if you want a blanket or something like that. And then folding forward, walking the arms out straight, letting that forehead rest down toward the ground. Again, you could have a block here for the head to rest on. I could stay here for a couple of moments. The other thing that I like to do in this pose is walk the hands over to the left a little bit. It gives a little bit of a side stretch here on the right. And then of course, I'll do it on the other side as well. Get that stretch for the left, finishing up in the center. And again, I'm just demonstrating very quickly. You can stay in these poses for as long as is comfortable. And then we come back up. Now, the other thing that sometimes I will do if I need a refresher, back here and sit on my cushion again, is adding in a little bit of massage for the hands or feet, the wrists, particularly if you are on the computer a lot or if you're on your feet a lot. That can also be really nice. So I might be doing something as simple as just making a fist and rolling my wrists around. I might also interlace the fingers and roll the wrist that way. flipping the palms out to stretch the fingers. This is nice. You can add this little cat stretch here too. All right. And then with the feet, sometimes I'll just simply interlace my fingers over the shin, lift my feet up and just do some pointing and flexing, maybe rotating the foot in one way and then the other. You could also literally bring your foot up on your lap and do a little bit of a foot massage. You could do the same thing with your hand too, just to kind of, if you have tightness or tension in those, in your hands or feet, sometimes nice to treat them to a little bit of a massage, just to kind of work those kinks out. And again, I would do the same thing on the other side if I were doing this as well. Another thing that we do sometimes in yin that's nice for the feet is to have a ball, a small ball. And I do have one here. Let me grab that real quick. Just small, little tiny ball. It can be larger if you want, but I find the smaller ones really get in there. And I just kind of roll my foot. Some people I know use tennis balls and things like that. Just a little rubber ball. And just rub it around, roll it around, excuse me. Just really work out some of those kinks, massaging the bottoms of the feet. And again, you can do that on both sides. So that's another nice thing. You can even do that while you're sitting at your desk working or while you're watching television or something like that. This is something that you could do anytime just to kind of rejuvenate and revitalize the feet a little bit. You can do the same thing with the hands. You can have the ball and roll it around with your hands, again, getting into the fascia in the hands as well. So just a couple of ideas that might speak to you. Again, any pose that you use your favorite. I know when my hip is particularly giving me problems, I love pigeon pose. I will get into pigeon pose that really stretches out my hip. Depending on what hip issue you have, that might not work for you, but for what happens in my hip, that feels really, really good. So again, finding the poses that speak to the areas of your body that feel really good, and just taking a few minutes, some point in the day, again, beginning of day, end of day, you know, at a point in the day where you're just at your max and you need that couple of moments just to kind of take a break and reboot, refresh yourself. It's a nice way to do that. So as we go into January, as we start this new year, start to think about the little things like a little mini flow like this that you can do to really support yourself, your mind, body, and your soul, just to kind of help you be the best you and accomplish all the things you want to accomplish in this new year. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope this was helpful. It's a little different than the typical mini flows that we've done, but it's something I wanted to introduce other than in a blog. We could certainly do this in a blog as well, but I think sometimes seeing it in action a little bit is also helpful too. So again, hope it serves you well and have a beautiful January. Namaste.